Hi everyone, welcome back to the Law of Attraction Life Coaching Podcast. And I'm Laura. If you don't know me already, I am your local life coach, bringing you information online through the podcast series, live webinars, and also offering group and one-to-one coaching. And if you don't know already, I've got a great 3-day Facebook challenge coming up where you can learn some of the basics about law of attraction and actually look to create some more positive change in your life. So I look forward to seeing you all then. That's coming up in July. If you're interested, I'm going to leave a little link below that you can use to sign up. So today I wanted to talk a little bit more about sort of life really in general. Start spilling the tea a little bit, as they say. I'm thinking about how we can actually go from possibly suffering from depression and moving through that into being a more positive person. And this can seem like, a world of change, particularly when you're sort of dealing with unhappiness. And I'll give you a bit of my backstory. So I grew up in quite a tumultuous home when I was younger. And there was sort of a lot of stuff going on that, children shouldn't ever see. And this, unfortunately, manifested itself in some really severe mental health issues for me and complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So I had a nervous breakdown when I was about 15, and this kind of led me into a pathway of self-healing. And I started to look at things like, started seeing a counsellor, a psychotherapist to begin with, and that moved me through into kind of processes where looking at kind of meditation and hypnosis. I had some regression therapy and some tapes given to me by one of my psychotherapists when I was 15. I kind of went through quite a lot, an awful lot actually. And I had, dances with very severe sort of depression that manifested itself in self-harming and addictive behaviour. So I had binge eating disorder that then moved into kind of like anorexia and bulimia at one point when I was about 19. And then sort of moving through sort of other kind of self-harming behaviours. It's a hell of a lot. It's a hell of a lot of stuff to go through. My life just kind of took this really downward spiral that just took me down some really negative paths, meeting some people that, probably weren't good for me, and kind of taking me from being this kid who had huge amounts of potential. When I was a very little girl, I had, I was like the teacher's helper, and I was a prefect in primary school. And when I sort of, went into teens, as it always is, but as I sort of kind of got towards teens, it just got worse and worse, and I was getting, I was very fat when I was a teenager, so I kind of got to being about kind of 16, 17 stone when I was like about 16 years of age, and I just remember sort of putting on about a stone every birthday, which was really depressing, and this is because I was really severely kind of comfort eating, which is it's a self-harming behaviour, but it's a really normal kind of process that a lot of people deal with. Even now in quarantine, a lot of people I see sort of on work chats and things that are complaining that they gained weight because they're kind of comfort eating. So this became something that was apparent. And, I got bullied quite badly at school, which was also kind of, an impact because I never really kind of had any respite. I kind of had a tumultuous situation at home, and then I had a tumultuous situation at school, and there was no respite from trauma, really. And the thing about it is if you're raised in traumatic situations as a child, you never really get the steady platform that a lot of people who have had, I hesitate to use normal, but, normal childhoods, they have this kind of like firm foundation where their parents have taught them, how to deal with their emotions, how to deal with kind of like normal emotional kind of outbreaks, and how to deal with anger and fear, and they have like a secure environment for them to kind of have that ability to be able to go forward to learn important strategies to become a healthy adult. And I didn't have that. And for many reasons, my parents aren't bad people. They have been through traumas themselves. you know, that has led them to unfortunately kind of like, you know, create the cycle continuing. And what I wanted to do, and what I am doing, what I have done, I hope, I mean, I don't have any children yet, but you know, is stop the cycle with me. And so I've been through an 18-year journey now. I can't actually believe it's been that long, but you know, an 18-year journey of finding ways to move through pain, to deal with the fallout of all of the mental health issues that I dealt with when I was younger, and to kind of process the trauma and the pain that is generational. You know, it's not my parents' fault, it's not their parents' fault, it's something that is continuing. And unfortunately, you know, if we don't deal with our trauma, if we don't deal with our pain, we do pass that on to our children, because if you don't, then you are unintentionally or intentionally, you end up inflicting the pain on those that are around you to the closest. And that's normally your children and your partner. You know, hopefully your partner is somebody who is able to mentally process trauma, and somebody else, you know, acting out through their own pain. They can kind of recognise that it's not really about you, it's about the other person, even if they're being really detrimental towards you. But children don't understand that. Children take in trauma and abuse into themselves. They believe that the reason why you know, mummy or daddy or whomever, auntie, uncle, grandparent, or whatever is behaving however they are behaving towards them, they believe it's their fault. And so children in traumatic situations take so much on. You know, they take a lot of that trauma into themselves. And I know that for me, that is very much my story. You know, I thought that everything was my fault. I felt that if only I could be, you know, a better person. And you know, this has kind of been a driver of perfectionism that has seen me fall into, you know, anorexia and bulimia. A lot of that was about, you know, attempting to fall in line with some perfectionist standards and idealism, and also having that level of self-control with myself that, you know, if I could go 3 days without eating, it showed what a strong person I was, and the level of self-control that I had. And at the time, I remember thinking, I was very unwell at the time, but I can remember thinking at the time how strong I was. You know, how strong I was that I was able to defy hunger, you know, and be like, it's okay, like, I'm gonna eat 3 days, I don't care, you know, I don't need to eat because I'm stronger than that, you know. And it became this, you know, a lot of the things that have led me to being where I am now actually have been drivers of perfectionism, have been drivers of attempting to kind of attain self-esteem from exterior values, and it didn't work. You know, it didn't work. I can remember where, you know, I went to, when I started to kind of attempt to change my life and extract some positivity from it, I moved to Cardiff, and I thought I'll go to university because this was some thing that I'd managed to prove to myself that I was, you know, an achiever and I'd made change in my life. And I'm not saying that it wasn't that, but it, you know, for my mindset, you know, if I went to university, it meant I was worth something. And actually, you know, the product of going to university was me moving to a different city and being on my own a lot and having to deal with having to deal with myself, you know. And this was kind of the first time really in my life that I had attempted to deal with myself, because, or spend time with myself, you know, up until maybe early 20s. I was very dependent on other people. I always wanted to be surrounded by people. I wanted, you know, I was always trying to be busy. I suppose some of that kind of continued, but always trying to sort of stay busy because then I wasn't really thinking about, you know, about the way I was feeling. And I can remember when I was sort of in my sort of late teens, early 20s, you know, I'd become somebody who was always kind of out, always partying. I can remember this one time, there'd been terrible storms. It must have been about 17, 18 at the time. There's terrible storms and snowstorms, and I was like, no, I'm going out. I had a scooter at the time, like a 125 scooter, and I rode in like a foot of snow and blizzards to go to the pub because I couldn't even think about kind of staying in, you know, and having to just be on my own and kind of face my thoughts and myself. So, you know, a huge amount of my drivers for my personal self was about avoiding myself. You know, I went down, you know, all the things that I've done, you know, self-harm, kind of addictions, all of these sort of things out, you know, drinking too much, partying too much, smoking too much, whatever it was, all of it was distracting techniques. And it was an attempt to kind of like get outside of my brain enough that I didn't have to reckon with the pain that was inside. But you know, when you do that, you get into this cycle where you're always having to look for the next distraction, because you can't get away from yourself. You know, you are you. That's who you are. You carry your pain internally, and you can't continue to seek exterior influences and exterior things to take this pain away from you. It doesn't work. And so, you know, when I moved to Cardiff, I didn't have any friends there. I didn't know anybody there, and I was living in a flat on my own. So I spent a huge amount of time alone. And I was a mature student. Most of the other students were sort of 18. I wanted to do really well in my uni course, so you know, I wasn't getting into the whole kind of going out and freshers and partying and stuff. I'd already done all of that, and it was really lonely. You know, it was really, really lonely, and I get quite a lot of people going through this process actually with lockdown, that you might be kind of having to stand and face yourself for perhaps the first time in your life, because you can't stay busy, and because you can't distract yourself with, you know, partying or going out or work or whatever it is that is your normal distraction technique. And so, you know, I kind of went to Cardiff, and I was just so lonely, and I recognised, you know, how depressed I was quite a lot of the time. You know, I drank too much alone quite a lot. At one point I was drinking like a bottle of wine like an evening, you know, to try and kind of desensitize myself, you know, to get myself away from myself enough that it wasn't painful. And I was just kind of like, what the hell am I doing, man? I've like come this far, you know, and I was doing my uni course, which was really difficult, hard work and very stressful, and I was very alone. I didn't really have any friends there or anything. And I was single. And I'd kind of, you know, just before that summer, I'd come out of a relationship that was really, really detrimental. You know, my ex-boyfriend his mother had died, and he had kind of gone down a really damaging route to himself as well, in attempting to kind of move out of his pain. And so he'd sort of started taking lots of drugs, and had ended up kind of giving himself stress and drug-induced kind of psychosis. At the time, he was very, very, very odd, difficult to be around, and that caused me quite a lot of trauma. And then, you know, leaving him, you know, breaking up had caused me a huge amount of trauma as well. So the whole thing was traumatic. You know, I've got so much trauma involved in my life, but what I recognise is actually that, you know, the longer that I spent evading the pain that I was in, and evading the trauma and the truth of my life, the longer I kind of tried to disassociate with it, the more it's kind of had a stranglehold on me, and the more that I had gone into more and more destructive behaviours in an attempt to ignore it. You know, it's like this great big white elephant is in the middle of the room, and you're trying to. It's like, you know, you could acknowledge the white elephant in the room, or you can spend the whole life like knocking down walls and setting fires and, you know, doing things other in the room to take your mind off things. But actually, all of that is just more damage. You know, so I'm going around setting fire to everything in the room so I don't have to face this white elephant. But actually, if I just turned around and faced the white elephant, that would be significantly less damaging to my mental health and everything in my life. You know, I think that when I was in Cardiff, I started to kind of really practice law of attraction, and this was the beginning of where, you know, my life started to turn around. Really, I think I was practicing law of attraction before I'd moved to Cardiff, but my mindset was always so peaks and troughs, because I was still kind of like trying to ignore this white elephant in the room of my mental health being severely bad and me being an incredibly negative person. And you can't practice law of attraction when you're an incredibly negative person. It doesn't work. And so when I kind of got to Cardiff, I think maybe the first 2 years weren't particularly great, but then, you know, the third year I started to think about you know, attempting to exact change in my life through using law of attraction. And I came out of university with a 2-1. I managed to get my you know, a place, and it was great because I'd gone for a postgraduate course, and I went for an interview on my birthday, and I just manifested all of this, and I just knew I was going to get it, and I had this like resonance that when I was in there, I was like, everything that I've been doing is leading to this. And I got the place on the course, which was amazing. I had an amazing lecturer called Judith, who I just absolutely adored, and she was fantastic, and she was such a nice woman and really good role model for me, really encouraging of me as well, which was great. But also, also kind of understanding. I spoke to her quite freely about some of the things that had gone on in my life up until me being there, and she was like, good on you, girl. And she was really supportive about, being to where I've gotten to, because, I know that a lot of people could have gone through a lot of the stuff that I've been through and wouldn't be here anymore. I think it is almost like an angel's breath that I'm even here myself. There's been numerous times that I have, deliberately acted in dangerous ways in hope that I wouldn't be here the next morning. And had times when I've been very flippant about my safety and flippant about my life. And I think it is just good luck for me to be here. And that's why, my mission now is to help more people to be able to do what I've done. And I started intentionally trying to turn my thoughts around, and it takes consistency. It takes consistency, and it takes conscious awareness of the things that you think and the way that you behave and the things that you say to turn your life around. And when I realised that, the thoughts that I have inside my head are just thoughts, and if I wake up in the morning and I think I'm an asshole, it doesn't mean I'm an asshole, it's just a thought. Whereas I think that a lot of people can wake up and they become so attached to their thoughts that they ruin their present moment. They sit and they wake up in the morning and say, oh, my life is trash, and they carry that with them as if their life is trash and that's the only thing that it'll ever be. And it's like every day is, a new opportunity to manifest, to change your life, to become the thing that you want to become. And I kind of went through this process of being conscious about my thoughts and conscious about the language that I used, and becoming a conscientious manifester in my life, of drawing the things to myself that I wanted to have. And, there were things like, manifesting my course on, the #1 university in Wales. And I got a place on there. And I got it on my birthday, which was amazing. And it's my first choice. And I'd only had 2 choices, and the other place I'd gone to, I got a place for, but I didn't want it. It was terrible. I had a terrible interview there. They were late, all sort of crap. So I'd said they sort of messed up the interview dates. Nobody turned up to the interviews, and then they said that we could re-interview, but by this point I'd already had my interview with my first choice university, and I'd gotten in there, so that was amazing. So applied to this university, got in, so that was the beginning of things. And then I just kept succeeding, getting firsts, and really high grades in my course. And I went forward to go and do a practical at Bridgend College, where it still wasn't perfect. I was still suffering from mental health at points. I was still suffering with stress, because I hadn't developed healthy coping strategies to deal with my stress. So it was more of a thing that kind of like, and the problem is as well, if you've been through a lot, in comparison, normal day-to-day stress just feels like joy when you've been through a lot. And so for me, something that I find quite difficult is actually that it takes me to get to burnout before I recognise that I'm stressed. Because normal stress that normal people go through, when people go, oh God, I'm really stressed, and they find like that's, too far into the red zone. For me, it's barely even touching the red zone from where I've been in my past and in my life. So, what feels like shit to most people feels like, oh, it's okay to me. And so, I was having problems with learning coping strategies and when to kick coping strategies in to make sure that I wasn't getting down into like these desperate stages of stress, which is another huge thing for, people that have got complex post-traumatic stress disorder or child trauma. These are huge things that we have to learn, and we have to learn them as adults. And most people don't need to learn this stuff. You were taught it when you're a child, you're taught it and you don't have these great polarizations between, absolute depressions and to being kind of like joy. It's much more up this end of the scale. And when you get to here, you're like, oh, feeling a bit stressed, better deal with that. But when I kind of get to here, and this is something I'm still learning now, when people have been through a lot of trauma get to here, it still feels really comfortable, whereas actually it's not healthy, and we shouldn't be getting down to kind of like down here on this kind of shit scale before we realize it's time for us to temper ourselves and to do some self-care. And so coping strategies that I started to bring in were really strong levels of self-care, that this was something that I was practicing day in, day out, whether I needed to or not. And from my perspective, that needed to or not is dysfunctional. You need to be practicing self-care every single day. You need to be eating well, you need to be looking after yourself, you need to be meditating, you need to be exercising, you need to be moving your body, you need to be thinking joyful thoughts and loving yourself and tempering anything that is negative. And I think that was one of the most potent things I did to start to turn my life around, was to temper my thoughts to be much more positive. And I'd gone through years of when you've been bullied, when you've been oppressed, when you've had people being horrible to you quite regularly, their words become like a tape inside your head, continuing the abuse. So you do something wrong, and the words that they've said to you are repeated back, in your own kind of head, and this becomes your belief that you are worthless, that you're stupid, that you're ugly, that you're unlovable, all these horrible things that people have said to you previously. These become your inner monologue. And when I recognised this, and when I recognised actually that I was continuing the bullying of my former perpetrators internally, I made efforts to change that inner monologue. And one of the first things that I did was an activity that I did with my clients, which is the Romero Activity, which is where we sit down and we consciously form an affirmation that you talk to yourself about, to change that inner monologue, to change it from being that you're worthless, that you're stupid, that you're ugly, whatever it is, to change it to being that you're wonderful, that you're desirable, that you're lovable, that you're intelligent, that you're smart, and to consciously create this vibration in yourself of being one of self-love and one of worthiness, because we are all worthy, we do all deserve love regardless of our actions in life, because we're all human, and that's human nature, and that is the baseline human right. It's our human right to be loved. It's our human right to be looked after. It's our human right to be able to express ourselves freely without people attacking you or being cruel to you or whatever. And that's what the experience of this plane is. And so I kind of started to kind of real work on myself, and I found it really bloody difficult because it was horrible, because I hated myself. And to stand in front of a mirror and be like, I love you, when you hate yourself, it's bleh. It feels icky, and it feels like bollocks as well. It's like, I'm not a liar, this feels like crap. But I stuck with it, and if you do stick with it, if you stick with these processes of attempting to love yourself more, and when you get a horrible thought, you say yourself three, you say 3 things nice to yourself. If I say, that happened because you're an idiot, I go, hang on a minute, I'm not an idiot, I'm smart, I'm quite intelligent, I've gone to university, and I back it up with some different evidence to reset my inner monologue, to reset that tape that's internal. And this tape could be anything that it wants you to be, and fake it till you make it, guys. I can't even believe some of the stuff that I've done in my life. I've been a professional singer. I've sung on stage, I've put on shows, I've co-written shows that have gone around schools and played in theatres, and I've recorded an album, and I've been to professional recording studios and sung, and I've been, I'd get off stage and people would come up to me afterwards and tell me how amazing I was and how wonderful I was, and they'd hung around at the end of my shows to come and talk to me, and that was really bizarre, and now it's another form of that, when I go and coach and I do group workshops and stuff, and I'm like, bye then everyone, and they don't want to go because people are hanging around to talk to me, and I'm like, well, this is weird. And it's not so much, I think the problem is that people feel that, to get confidence, you have to feel like you're capable. Well, you know, the confidence doesn't come before the capability. The capability comes before the confidence, you know, and you have to bite the bullet and you have to go and do the thing that scares the shit out of you and makes you feel really uncomfortable, and go and do it, you know, and then the people come up to you afterwards and they say how amazing you are, and that gives you the confidence. You don't get the confidence beforehand. You don't feel like you're amazing and then go and do it. And that's the kicker for most people, because they want to feel amazing before they got the guts to go and do it. But fortune favours the brave. You know, if you want to do something, you've got to get out there and bloody well do it before somebody's told you you're amazing and that you can do it. And that's what I've done. You know, I think that something that I've always kind of taken as a point is, if I feel frightened, I'm going to do it, because that's probably the thing that I should do. You know, before I set up my first meetup group that I set up in Cardiff, and I went to go and do, I was crapping myself. I was really anxious. I was worried that people would, you know, laugh at me, or would think I'm stupid, or wouldn't like the things I've got to say, or would, you know, deride everything that I kind of would, you know, be derisive towards everything, all my ideas and all my thought patterns and everything. But that never happened. People just came and they were like, that was really interesting, thank you so much. And I was like, wow, I'm actually able to change, I'm actually able to help people. You know, my first client, I was like, can I do this? And I was scared, but I haven't had any clients that have come back to me. I mean, maybe they wouldn't, but everybody that has ever written a testimonial for me that I've worked with, they have been so kind and loving to me about the work that I've done with them. And for me, that makes the world, you know, makes the world worthy, because, you know, the reason why I set up my business was to be able to help more people. You know, the reason why I make these videos, this isn't some self-serving kind of ego bullshit. This is about me bearing my soul, which can be really painful and very uncomfortable at points. I don't like being vulnerable. It's not nice being vulnerable, you know, and putting videos up where you tell people your most destructive and messed up things that you've been through. But I know that when I break my silence, you break your silence. And when we break our silences, the pain stops, because we suddenly realize that we're not the only ones who are suffering. And we suddenly realize that it's okay to speak about this stuff, that we can share our pain. You know, a lot of the stuff that's happened to me in my life has happened because people have kept their silences. You know, and they haven't been honest about what's happened. They haven't talked about it, and in that silence, it allows that devastation to grow. It allows that like black, inky muck that gets on everything to just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's devastating. You know, and I don't want to be somebody that continues that perpetuation of misery. I want to be somebody that changes that. And so I speak honestly, because in honesty, we can sit down and we can have a conversation and say, hey, you've done something shit's happened to you. Me too, man. And we can find camaraderie with each other. And so, you know, by me helping other people, not only does it validate my pain, make it worthwhile, you know, bring something positive from it. It also, I don't know, it just makes you really happy, I suppose. You know, I feel a little bit, you know, I'm a light worker, you know, I bring the light to other people. You know, when I see somebody in darkness, I recognize that darkness and I know where they've been, and it's like having somebody being able to guide you back through the maze. You know, and a lot of people are just suffering in the middle of this maze, screaming for help, and nobody knows how to get in and nobody knows how to get out. Well, I damn well know. I've been in, I've been out a few times. You know, and I can come and I can bring the lantern to you and say, come on guys, this way out. So follow me, because I'll show you the way to happiness. You know, and it starts with the way that you think about yourself. It starts with the words that you use. You know, I used a lot of scripting as well. You know, when I manifested my partner, I created a script about who I wanted to be in my life. And I talked to myself every morning when I was putting my makeup on. Anybody would think I was mad watching me. I don't care. If people think I'm mad, I couldn't care less what people think about me. You know, that cat, we're all mad here, Alice. You know, the Cheshire Cat in Alice in Wonderland. And the Mad Hatter says, you know, all the best people are. It's true. All the best people are mad. So I don't care. But I used to talk to myself every day in the mirror like, oh, you know, this guy I've just met, he's amazing, he does this, he's like that, talking about qualities that he had. And it created such a strong vibration in myself that when I met my partner, I recognized him for the qualities that he is. My soul, on a cellular level, recognized the qualities that he had, that then I had already set this very strong vibration to have. You know, and I've always had kind of quite, I don't know, dramatic relationships, I suppose. I fall in love hard and fast. I go in quite kind of quick with it all. You know, I don't like separation. I find that really difficult. You know, and so, you know, when I'm attached to somebody, I'm attached to you, and it, you know, and it, whether good or bad, you know, and I've had some really damaging and detrimental relationships that haven't been good for my health, but I've also had some really good ones, and this one's really good, you know, because I've manifested the qualities. So, but it's about becoming conscious of the way you're thinking, and I think the problem is there's a lot of people that are just walking around in a fog. You know, they're not recognizing what they're thinking, they're not thinking about what they're saying, they're just being reactive all the time, and if you're reactive to life, you're at the will of the exterior. You know, you're at the will of what happens outside of you to inform what's going on inside of you. And that's a really dangerous way to live, I think, because it only takes one word or one action or something to go wrong. I mean, look at the situation with coronavirus. You know, people who are living in their lives reactive now. They're like, oh my God, and they don't know what to do, and now they're living a life of fear and worry and concern and anxiety, because all they're doing is paying into this kind of media sensationalism of what the coronavirus pandemic is, and all the language that is used to kind of create fear and panic. And you can see this, you know, that their whole lives are filled with fear and panic now because they are reactive to life. And so their internal dialogue, their internal monologue is entirely consisting of what is happening on the external. And so I've worked really hard to become somebody who isn't reactive, to become somebody who's proactive, and proactive off of her own deliberate, conscious creation. So I'm aware of the words I use. I don't talk about things that I don't want in my life. You know, things that are negative, that people kind of go, oh, you didn't tell me that had happened, or oh, it's really important, you've got to say stuff about that. I don't want, you know, I don't talk about bad news. We don't sit and say, oh my God, this bad thing's just happened to me, because if I talk about that, I create more of a vibration in myself and more of an energy in myself to attract more bad stuff. So I don't talk about that. I talk about things that are good that are happening. You probably don't see that very much, because on my podcast, a lot of the time I'm telling you quite earnestly about stuff, but you know, I do that because of creating that parameter of honesty about us. And actually, you know, when I talk about kind of a lot of the shit that's kind of happened to me in my life, I don't really identify very much with it anymore, although it still affects me at points, and although it's very, very much still part of my story, it's compartmentalized into kind of like my past, and so it's not so much a strong vibration. You know, I can bring that vibration up. If I sit and I want to talk about all this crap, then I will start to resonate back in the energy of who I was when I was younger, and I don't want to do that. So I focus much more on the positive things. You know, I focus on using words that are consciously describing myself in a way that I would like to be manifested in and come across as in my presence. I script a lot, so I create. My journal is from me in the future. You know, about the things that I want to create, you know, and talking about how my business has flourished, how my YouTube channel has got millions of subscribers, and how I make amazing money off of it, and how, you know, all of my clients are fantastic and doing really well, and how many people I can help, and being able to help charities, and being able to do more, you know, because I've got the money to be able to do it, and the freedom to be able to do it. And I create this really joyful energy about all of this wonderful stuff that I'm able to do. And it sets a parameter in my mind to be proactive instead of reactive, because I know where I'm going. Whereas a lot of people don't set goals, a lot of people don't know where they're going. And so they're just reactive. They're reacting to any old shit that happens. And because you're like that, you're just like a dead fish going with the water. You're going where the water takes you. You know, I say to my clients, be a salmon, go upstream. Where do you want to go? You know, where do you want to go? And wherever that is, go that way. Don't follow the stream. Don't go with the dead fish. And so, I've spent huge amounts of my life creating consciously, and I'm shocked to see how much of it has come to fruition. But I trusted that belief, and I trusted in the seat of my belly that I was capable and that I was competent, and I'm really proud of where I've gotten to. A lot of people, a lot of weaker, I don't know, lesser women would have fallen. I don't know whether weak is the term, I don't know, that seems a little bit icky, a bit judgmental from where I want to come from, but lesser people would have fallen at less than what I've been through. And I'm like, cool, I'm okay, and I'm living a really good life. I've got an amazing home, I've got an amazing partner, I've got an amazing business where I'm able to help people, which is just building. It's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger every year, that I'm able to do more, be more, help more, and having more and more incredible opportunities coming up in the future, which are really exciting. And life just gets better every year. And so I implore you to start, because you can change your life. I can't change it for you. I can definitely give you tips and help you along the way, but I can't change it for you. It takes active representation in your life to be able to change the things that you're unhappy with. But you can do it, because I started off 6 feet under at the beginning of my life, having to climb my way out of this pit of misery and depression and mental health issues that I had been kind of chucked into, and I've climbed out of there, and then I kind of carried on working up, and I'm still further up the ladder than some people who didn't even have to start 6 feet down. I'm not talking about the success ladder of business, but the ladder of life, the ladder of joy, the ladder of getting towards your dreams. And so start now, because it's never too late, and you can do it. I have absolute faith in you that you can do it, because I can do it. If I've done it, you can do it. Believe in me. So a little bit of a rambly one. I don't know. I wanted to talk to you guys about this sort of stuff. But law of attraction has made me a much happier person. It has brought so much good into my life. Working with positive mental attitudes has completely and absolutely changed my mental health. And becoming somebody who's a conscious creator, who is proactive instead of reactive, has just changed my world 180. And I can pick and choose what I behave towards, instead of just getting, reacting from the monkey mind, from the caveman in my head who's just like, instead of doing that, I'm being much more conscious about the way I behave and what I do and what happens in my life, and that's joyful. So if you want to learn a bit more about law of attraction, I've got some videos. I'll try and leave some cards. I keep saying that. I still haven't done it yet. I'll work it out. I'm sorry, guys. But I'll definitely leave some links below, because I know how to do that. And come on the 3-day free, come on the Facebook challenge. It's free. It's starting up in July. Come along. I'll leave a link to it below that you can sign up to it. It's a 3-day Facebook challenge, looking at using some of these strategies that I've talked about, that I've implemented to change my life around, to create more of a positive mental attitude, and actually to just change my life entirely. So come along. It's free. What have you got to lose? The only thing you've got to lose is your negative mental attitude. So good luck with that. I'll speak to you all soon. I love you all very much. Please give a thumbs up. Please like, share, subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you all soon for the Facebook challenge. Much love. Bye.